I don't know. Okay, today is June 14th, 2020, and this is my final attempt to finish the last video associated with work history and employment. Um, and really, it's only to cover a specific topic, that I left out in previous videos that I said I would touch on later. It's regarding Strom Engineering. Strom Engineering is a replacement company that I used to work for. My first assignment with them was 2006. They respond to labor disputes. So that means if a company is going through negotiations, with their union worker, and they can't come to an agreement that leads to them getting locked out or the union workers going on strike, the company, Strom Engineering, would pretty much provide for them the skilled laborers that they need in order to keep up production so that the company doesn't take a complete hit while they're working through their contract. Um, like I said, my first assignment with them was in 2006. I've only been on three, maybe four assignments with that company. Um, that first job, I ended up staying on. Like when, you know, um, at the end of the dispute, a lot of replacement workers were given the opportunity to stay on and, continue working for AK Steel. And so I ended up staying on and staying in the area for a short while, about 2, maybe 3 years. Um, the next assignment I went on with them was in Wisconsin. This is between though. So I went to Wisconsin. They were on standby. But during my stay, that little standby situation, hold on, I never take my arm. Okay, during that standby situation in Wisconsin, I ended up meeting the VP. So in 2006, I met the project manager. His name is Josh. Years later, I ended up dating him for a little bit. It's probably 6, 8 years later, almost a decade. Well, no, maybe not that long. 2006, 2011. 5 years later. So, but anyhow, back to Wisconsin. I met the VP. So, and during that time, me and Josh were like that. He would always kind of crush on me and stuff like that, but that was it. We were all out, us three, having drinks, the project manager, the vice president, and I. So we were out having drinks, and, the VP was kind of coming on to me. And when Josh thought that he was coming on to me, them two have a longer history than he and I, so he kind of knows how he operates. You get what I'm saying? Like he knows Jason's hold on my shoulder. Jason's approach. So, when he saw him coming on me, he took that as his cue to leave, just out of nowhere. I came with you, but it was like, he was like, it's no big problem. I forgot how we ended up working it out. And he was like, we can get, the VP was like, it's okay. We can catch a cab together or whatever. He was like, they can take you home or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So we stayed and we drank some more or whatever. And he hit on me a little bit. And he tried to get me to come back to his place with him. And why didn't I drive? Let's drive. So he was trying to get me to come back to his room, his hotel room with him. And I wouldn't. And so pretty much ever since I shut him down, he hasn't had like a real vendetta, but it's like demonic foresight. He knew that I was going to go for like the laid back, the other type of white guy. You get what I'm saying? Like not the suit and tie, extremely morally corrupt, horrible bad business practice, and prejudice at the root, white guy versus, you know, the kind eugenics experiment, you know, the black white guy that, you know, majored in history and, you know, has a liking for black people. You know, he's just attracted to black folks. So, demonic foresight. Nothing happened between Jason and I. I went to my room, he went to his room, and so some time goes by. Me and Josh were like in contact a couple years after that, you know, like, and now I'm staying in not in Middletown, but Monroe, Ohio, right next to Middletown. They might as well be the same place. And he's in, and I have a job in Westchester. Maybe I was still in Middletown, but I have a job in Westchester, and he, you know, reaches out. Somehow we got connected, and he's like telling me that he had a gig, you know, and he was saying that, you know, pretty much they were full. I'm trying to remember what he was telling me about the job, because it was odd that I couldn't come on. Hold on one second. Okay, hold up. Maybe it'll come to me. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about what took place. So when we were in contact, like I said, I had that small job. I think I was at Container Port at the time in Westchester, Ohio. And I was telling him, I'm like, you know, I'm like in this relationship, you know, and I'm like, you know, I kind of feel bad because he got divorced, you know, and to be with me. And I was like, you know, but he has kids and I don't like that, you know. And I was like, you know, if nothing else, I was just trying to be there during a difficult time because I feel like he deserves the opportunity to be happy and stuff like that, you know. So that, I was telling him, like, I'm in this relationship. I don't like my job. I don't like my relationship, but that's what it is right now. And he was like, well, we got this job. He was like, if that's what it was a real small job. He was on a real small job at the time with like a particular group. Sometimes it's like that. Like sometimes they'll be on a couple different jobs, and on this job, you know, they'll only have welders, and on that job they'll have millwrights, and you know, at another place they'll have some I'm trying to get like another one of the, it's like the B, it starts with a B. Anyhow, so it was like one of those type of assignments, you know, so there wasn't a position for me at the time. And this is like probably right before I started school for project management or whatever. And so we lose touch again. And then we reconnect. He catches me on Facebook a couple years later. That's weird. What I want to know right now is what you just saw happen was in hindsight type of ordeal. So there's what I'm telling you, and then there's the now knowing. So now now knowing what I know, I'm looking at how situations were being orchestrated, you know, like around me in order to get certain things that happen to take place. So that's what you just saw. That's what that reaction was. So anyhow, it's 2011. I just got back from a deployment like the year prior. And some other things are taking place like within my immediate family. You know, like a new kid, a potential deployment, and stuff like that. So I'm like, he's like, yeah. He was like, dude, I got a job. I was like, yeah, like, where you at? And he was like, man, it's in shit place, like North Dakota or whatever. And I was like, oh man. I was like, I want to come, like, you got a job for me? And he was like, yeah, like, come on, that's why I'm calling you anyhow, like contacting you anyhow. He's like, I've been trying to get a hold of you and find you forever. He's like, I had to fucking track you down on Facebook. And I was like, okay, cool. So literally within a week or so, I leave and I go. And he's telling me, he's like, you know, when I get there, he's giving me the rundown. You know, it's a sugar company. It's A-C-S-A-S-C-A. Sugar company. And he's like, you know, hey, he was telling me about the positions that they had. And I'm like, well, I want to be a project manager. Like, I just kind of, you know, I want to be, you know, I was like, and I got to school for it or whatever. He was like, okay, cool. He was like, let me talk to Jason and see what we can do. So he talks to Jason, and Jason wants to charge me for the job. He wants to charge me $500 a week to have the position. And I'm like, no, you know, and I still want the job. So I ended up getting a job, and I ended up not having to pay the $500 a week. And that ended up, you know, it ended up opening up a conversation between me and Josh. You know, he was like, so no, now Josh is like, I don't know, maybe he saw something that conflicted with what he knew or thought he knew, and now he's like, he'll make his move. And so he does, and we ended up, you know, messing around and stuff, and doing some cool stuff together. Like, we did some cool things together, and in the past, you know, we've always gotten together and went out for a drink and stuff like that. So he's like, he was talking about him. I was having a problem. Jason was showing up. He was coming or something, and whenever he comes, he wants him to get with him and, you know, drink and talk and stuff like that. So we together. I think I end up leaving or something. And now, you know, Jason's kind of mad. So I suppose he said something to Josh, and Josh ended up like telling me, he was like, yeah, man, like, you remember that assignment? He was like, yeah. Hold up, let me get this right. So let me tell you what's going on. Like, the female agent right now, she's like, I'm gonna telekinesis these memories as soon as you get done making your video. That's a common thread. You know, that they'll get off what I'm trying to recall or release what I'm trying to recall. Stop blocking what I'm trying to recall after I've made a video. And there's no way to compose the parts. You get what I'm saying? So it might be missing a detail. So anyhow, they got together or something, and somehow the topic of him came. He was telling me, he was like, you know, I hate that guy. He was like, I really, really hate that guy. Like, I mean, if I didn't have to, you know, if I didn't have a kid and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. He was like, you know, he was expressing some real strong hate for him. And acknowledging that he knows that Jason don't like him either. And that they're just pretty much two evils that exist in an evil company, where a lot of morally corrupt things are done. So I'm talking about ghost checks and, you know, lawsuits, you know, like, so he was telling me some of his business, some of Jason's business, you know, and why he married who he married and stuff like that. And he was like, and he said horrible things about you. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he ain't got nothing to say about me. And I was like, I've only, you know, been around him really one time. And I've always had his number until that phone was stolen, you know, and never called. But he was like, yeah, he told me, like, you guys, I I was probing, and for the life of me, I could not get him to say what Jason said. And he just kept saying that he said horrible, horrible things. And I'm like, there's no way he could have anything to say because there's nothing to say, you know? So not knowing what I'm knowing, like this whole subconscious mind attack, and you know how a experience can be implanted, how an experience can be removed, you know. So, and whatever the case may be, that'll be what you're able to recall or not recall. So, apparently Jason thinks something took place then, or maybe he was just mad about rejection. Because he's looking at me like a problem, really. He's like, even though you're like a small town black girl, like, I know who you are in the spirit realm. That's a demon. That's a demon. It knows who I am. So, and it was trying to get me into some shit. It was trying to get me into some forever shit. And that's like some of the stuff that Josh was talking about, you know, like the things that, how he been with the company for so long, like pretty much since they started, and all the stuff that he witnessed, and how they just keep him, you know, in a way. They're able to keep him. So I'm like, you know, that goes on. Because I'm like really trying to get him to spit it out. I'm like, I want to know the lie that was told, you know, and stuff like that. And he's like, he can't even bring himself to let the words fall out of his mouth. But check this out. Before I left North Dakota, part of why I left North Dakota, the assignment there, was because I ended up getting pregnant by Josh. I had no intentions on keeping it. But this is like early stages. So like I'm going through the motions, like just for health purposes. You get what I'm saying? So like I went to an appointment, or a prenatal appointment, scheduled a follow-up. And he was supposed to go with me to that follow-up. He knows that I'm with, or, you know, he knows I'm pregnant and stuff like that. I'm talking about on this assignment, we're getting fucked up like all the time. Like just all the time. Super duper good weed. I was smoking weed at the time. Hennessy XO was like my favorite drink. Trying all kind of stuff, Louis 13. So it was a good time. It was an okay time. And I was still doing like some traveling on my own. So anyhow, I miscarried. Like the government terminated the pregnancy and rewrote his memory. It created a lot of shit when I left North Dakota. So when I left, this is what happened. That day, that coming day, him and I had just had a fight, so we weren't even talking. You know, like, we had a fight, so we're mad. But we're like, we got this appointment tomorrow. So that's understood. We both get that. That night, I miscarried. And I was like, well, shit, I'm leaving. I was like, I'm out. I'm about to go to Africa. I'm going to go to Africa and heal. So that morning comes, and I go and I get Tito, which is another coordinator. I go and I get Tito, and I'm like, hey, here's the keys to the truck. Can you drop me off at the airport? And the apartment's in my name. Him and my brother stay there, and they occupied the room, my room, once I left. You know, they rented it out for a short time. Come June, this is like February 20th, the same night, the same day that I miscarried, my friend in Dayton, Ohio's brother committed suicide. You know, that is like a numbers thing, a sacrifice thing, you know, and now they're using her in a way. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that go into it, and I could really break that down, but that's not what this video is about. And yeah, so I go get Tito, keys, and I'm like, hey, drop me off at the airport. And I'm get to the airport, I catch my flight, and while I'm waiting on my flight, I text my brother, and I'm like, hey, I'm leaving, or I said, hey, I left. It was, my tone was different than that. I said, hey, I left, but you know, you got a job. I had just got him out some shit with a piss test. I'm like, but hey, you got your job, you know, and you're an adult and some other stuff. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'm cool, you know, or whatever. And we were cool. Like, you can see this transpire on Facebook. And he knows that I'm going to Africa. And he's like, he was like, well, the trip to Amsterdam's on me and stuff like that. And he doesn't come from the type of work background. I like took him out of the situation he was in and created an opportunity for him. Because Josh never liked him. You know, they were always cordial, but it was just something about him. And it's that spirit thing again, you know, the demons, you know, they don't vibe well. And they know, you know, what's going to take place when certain things happen. You know, they know about assumption of command, what could put them in a compromising position. Anyhow, back up a little bit. So while me and Josh were working, you know, like every fucking week, they fuck up my payroll. The government was fucking up my payroll. So after I finalized it and sent it in, like they were changing numbers and they make sure I have an error. It'd be like 1 error, sometimes 4, but it was always something. It gave Robin, the female at headquarters, a reason to call me. And she called me and, you know, have a tone one way, but then she called him. He's my supervisor. And she cussed bitch him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been working together for so many years. They cuss, they go off on one another. You get what I'm saying? So that's the type of stuff that was taking place every week. It was something, it seemed like. They just did not want, you know what I'm saying? They were trying to, it was the only way that they can make me look some kind of, you know what I'm saying? They just wanted to have something to say to me. They wanted to find something wrong with me. So the government was messing up my payroll, messed up my complaint as well. When I read my complaint after I wrote it, like, it was nothing like I wrote it. I sent it to the VP. Because it was exposing him. And when I read it, it looked more like it was exposing Josh. You get what I'm saying? So, like, it was a whole lot of, a little bit of politics in it, you know. But, so anyhow, what that complaint did was it left a window for me. I could come back, you know. Or I could have started a lawsuit, too. You know, I could have went a couple of different ways, but I was just on my way. I'm not thinking about coming back. I'm not thinking about doing none of that. But like, so eventually, like I said, they put them under a different suggestion. After I left and went to Africa, when I returned, Josh contacted me while I was in Africa. We were communicating via email. And so that's kind of how we lined up going to Vegas when I got back. So when I got back I went home. I left North Dakota, February 20th or 21st. And I decided to drive. You know, I just had like, it was a scare for me. It was a scare for me because, like I said, I had no intentions on being in that type of situation. When it comes to interracial kids, it just conflicts with my spirit so much. I could never do it. So, I'm driving. I'm like, I'm going to take a long ride. You know, I'll stop, sightsee on my way and stuff like that. And that's exactly what I did. I stopped in Ohio, made an appointment there, you know, just to make sure levels, you know, hormones and stuff were in place. And then I took off to Georgia. And the entire time, I had 2 accidents on the way. I've never had I had 1 accident in my life prior to that, but like they were tearing me up. A truck hit me. And then folding space, they had me rear in a car. Like unexplainably, like it was unexplainable things taking place. So, my shoulder. Okay, so back to this whole, man, you see how these events are like, I'm telling them out of order. So, while we're working and we're traveling and we're working from wherever we decide to go that day, that week or whatever, we're kind of plotting too. We're like, like we need to just, because I'm telling him about, like my desire to have started a business and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that me and my brother also had not in common. That was something that I spoke to him about in the past. That was something that I spoke to him about in the past. I was like, the next step for me is starting a business. And he was like, yeah, that's straight. That's cool. And he actually even sent me a link that he had the military gave him. I had the same one. It's like one stop for veterans or military when it comes to business and resources and stuff like that. So I have like a business plan that I got from Ray in Baltimore around that time. And I'm just going to like kind of go off of that and redo it and make my own. So, and there were a few different things that I was thinking on trying, like a few different businesses. When they reprogrammed my brother, they reprogrammed him to recall that situation differently. They reprogrammed him to recall me differently. So now whereas he's always honored, like not even honored, because it's a demon seed. There's no value in women. It just never disrespected me because I wouldn't allow it. So now that it has some change, and this demon knows that I'm allowed to be attacked. I'm talking about they done made extreme changes with this thing. Like, it's crazy. I'll talk about that. Maybe I'll make that a video of its own. No, reference the complaint. I wrote a complaint to his employer. That kind of puts it into perspective. So anyhow, we're plotting, and I'm like, business, and he's like, yeah, man, I've been wanting to do my own thing, like, with he said me and Clint talked about it and stuff like that. He was like, we're tired of fucking working for Strom and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, my bad. And so he's like, hey, I got a contract, but I'm gonna have to send it to like your email or whatever, or print it out and give it to you or whatever. This is from 2012. This contract that we were gonna, kind of no different than a business plan, revamp and cater to our own needs. That's what that contract is. So these are all things, he and Clint, I think, did end up starting a business. He reached out to me in 2017, right after the government attacked me. And he came to Ohio. He came to Akron. He was in Dayton at the time. He came to Akron. And he's like, man, come on, let's go stay in Cleveland. He was like, let's just go out and eat and stuff and stay in Cleveland for a night. So I tell him the story on the way. And like, I saw him one other time in between that. He came and visited me while I was in PA on an assignment. When I was in Altoona, Pennsylvania, he came and visited me there. And, we were both talking about the New World Order type stuff. That's the type of conversations we were having. We were talking about all those things. And and now it's like that on steroids, because I'm talking about all these matters, what the government's done to me in this short period of time. And he's like, don't worry about it, you can come. Look, I recorded the conversation, so I'm telling him, he's like, get it. He got it. You know what I'm saying? But when I mentioned the child, like the pregnancy, he had no recollection of it. And that was an eye-opener for me too. And it reminded me that, white folks don't have souls. They don't, which means that's a subconscious mind easily programmed, and it's normally done during college. So that was the type of stuff that you know what I'm saying? Like, remote neural monitoring is a beast. It affects what you can factor in. So I was told that white people don't have souls, that created races don't have souls. So that's Japanese, Chinese, everything in between, Mexican, Hispanic, everything in between, anything that's not African does not have a soul. When I was a kid, this is information that was passed on to me when I was a kid. And I grow up and I'm going through life, and I'm having all these experiences. And I'm diverse, but not, it's weird. It's like one of those things, like they want to be acquainted with me, you know, so that's, you know, it's weird. So, of course, if you're acquainted with me, you receive favor, and now it's the opposite way around. If you shun me, like, you receive favor. That's what this whole thing is turned into, the disinformation campaign associated with me changing my name. So, he don't recall the pregnancy, and he's like flipping out about it too, because he's like, oh my goodness, like I feel so bad, and you know, this and that and that and this, and you know, like and that, like I said, it clicked, and so yeah, that's what happened. The BP situation, I could have potentially sued. Later on, my brother was telling folks, you know, that I was blackballed. That never happened. Recently, because I was exposing, you know, talking more about the obstacles that I've experienced with the government shutting down employment, not allowing me to earn. You know, that's literally all I spent most of 2019 doing, was applying for jobs. And I contacted contacted Strom then. So there was reasons why I wasn't like hell bent with being affiliated. And then there's also, you know, when you look at the bigger picture, there's a lot of different things to factor in. You know, when you're talking about dimensions and parallel reality, you know, which is the tool for dimensional sabotage. I was always in two different tax brackets because I held two jobs most of my life. So I've always been like, when I wasn't active duty military, I was reserve, which means I still had to go and put time in. But I had a job outside of the military. So sometimes I'd be Strom, sometimes it would be special response, you know, a security job, you know, the travel, and or other things, you know. But that's two different tax brackets. One job I can get 6 figures, the other one I'm like 30, 40, you know, like maybe 50 $1,000 a year. That supports two different suggestions. It conflicted. And like I said, I wasn't helping or taking a lot of assignments with them because morally and stuff like that. So I reached out to them in 2019 and they didn't have a job. And you're going to see, she had her reaction. It's unfortunate that my laptop was stolen recently and smoked up by the motherfucking neighbors. That was the first thing I did when I got a stimulus check. Ordered a laptop. I turned my phone on so that I could have the minute situation, you know what I'm saying? So now I can do a lot of check and balance stuff. So anyhow, the laptop, oh goodness, they got mad about that. Oh, hold on. Okay, there it goes. So I told you that